morning, students. I hope all of you are well and sound. So let's begin today's lesson. So we were doing chapter 29, the Great War, and today, inshallah, we will cover the last lesson of chapter 29. That is last lesson of chapter 29, which is lesson 4, a flawed peace. And you will find this lesson on page 858 in your books. So here we go. Okay, just let me see. Okay, so in this lesson you will learn about the harsh peace that followed and about the settlement that ended World War I. So in short, we are going to learn about the settlement that ended World War I. And before we begin the lesson, first few important terms and people you should know before studying the lesson. So number one is here, Woodrow Wilson. So who was Woodrow Wilson? Who was Woodrow Wilson? He was the president who proposed the 14 points and represented the United States at Versailles. Then we have George Clemenceau. He was France premier and delegate at Versailles. Then we have 14 points. 14 points were the Wilson's plan for a just and lasting peace. Then we have another term, that is self-determination. It's been allowing people to decide for themselves about what kind of government they want. Then we have a term, Treaty of Versailles. What was the Treaty of Versailles? It was an agreement at the end of the World War I between Germany and the Allied powers. So this treaty was basically between Germany and the Allied powers. And then we have another term, Leagues of Nations. What does it mean? It means international group with a international group with a goal of keeping peace among nations. So here now we are going to study the Allies meet and debate. So many nations sent delegations to the peace talks in Paris, and the main leaders were Woodrow Wilson. He was the main leader of United States. And then we have George Clemenceau of France. He was the leader of France. And then we have David George of Britain. So Germany and its allies and Russia, they were not present in that peace meeting. And Wilson pushed, so what Woodrow Wilson, he pushed for his peace plan called the 14 points. So basically the 14 points were the plan of Woodrow Wilson. He wanted to end secret treaties and alliance and give people self-determination. And what was self-determination? It was the right to form their own nation. So Woodrow Wilson, he wanted to give people self-determination. He also hoped to set up a world organization. The third thing, what he hoped is to set up a world organization. And what that world organization would do, that would police the actions of nations and prevent future wars. So these three things Woodrow Wilson wanted. But Britain, especially France, they had different views. So they had suffered greatly because they had suffered greatly in the war. Britain and France, they suffered greatly in the war. They wanted to punish Germany. So because they suffered, so they wanted to punish the Germany. So what happened in this peace conference, that after long debates, the leaders finally agreed on a peace settlement, and that settlement, it was called the Treaty of Versailles, and was signed in June 1909. So now you have come to know what was the Treaty of Versailles. The treaty called for League of Nations. League of Nations, the world organization that Woodrow Wilson wanted. So finally this treaty called the Leagues of Nations. Germany and Russia, they were left out of the league, and the treaty took away German land in Europe and took away its colonies in Africa and the Pacific. So limits were placed on the size of Germany's army forces, and finally Germany was given complete blame for the war. So who was at blame at the end? Germany. And that meant it would have to make payments to the Allies for the damage caused. Now I'm going to play a short video to give you a clear concept about the Treaty of Versailles. If you will watch it, you will understand it more. So watch this and then we will continue again. Here.
The Treaty of Versailles, 1919. World War I officially came to an end with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles on June 28, 1919. 32 countries had come together in Paris in January 1919 to hold a conference which would make peace after the First World War. It would be dominated by the Big Three: David Lloyd George, representing Britain, George Clemenceau, representing France, and Woodrow Wilson, representing the USA. Germany was not invited. The Big Three wanted different things for Germany and disagreed on how harshly they were to be punished, reflecting how their countries were treated in the war. They had to negotiate with each other until there was a compromise. This was difficult because Wilson was opposed to harsh punishment for Germany. The USA had not been involved in the war as long as Britain and France, and had not received as much damage. He wanted to prevent another world war by creating the League of Nations based on his 14 points, to ensure Germany would not be destroyed, and that Germany shouldn't be blamed for the war. Clemenceau's aims were the harshest of the three, representing the damage Germany had done to France's land and people, and its threatening proximity. He wanted revenge and to punish Germany, to return Alsace-Lorraine to France, an independent Rhineland, no League of Nations, Germany to pay huge reparations for the damage and losses caused, the disbandment of the German army so that Germany would never be strong enough to attack France again. Lloyd George was an in-between. This reflected Britain, which had little land damage, but high war losses. He wanted a punishment that would be tough enough to please those who wanted to make Germany pay, but would leave Germany strong enough to still trade. Land for Britain's empire. To safeguard Britain's naval supremacy. When the Treaty of Versailles was ready, Germany was shown the document, but there was no negotiation. Their rebuttal ignored. On 28 June 1919, the delegates met at the Hall of Mirrors in the Palace of Versailles near Paris and forced two German representatives to sign it. See Part 2 to learn what the terms of the Treaty of Versailles were.
Okay, so here it finished. Now, next was about a troubled treaty. Basically, the Versailles Treaty was just one of the 5 treaties negotiated by the Allies. So in the end, these agreements created feeling of bitterness and betrayal among the victors and the defeated. So now you see how this treaty created the trouble. So Germany's former colonies were given to the Allies to go on until they decided which were ready for independence. So Poland here, okay, so here we have Poland, and then we have Czechoslovakia, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, they were all declared independence, and Finland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, they were once the part of Russia, they were made independent nations as well. So the treaty also broke up the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottomans kept control only of Turkey. And the treaty did not make a lasting peace. The United States Senate never approved the treaty or joined the League of Nations. Germans bitterly resented the treaty because it placed all the blame for the war on them. And colonial peoples in Africa and Asia, they were angry. Why? Because the treaty did not make them independent. And Japan and Italy were also upset by getting few territorial gains. So this is that's why it became a troubled treaty. So now at the end, like always, we have an activity for today. Like at the end of this whole chapter, you will find an assessment in your book, and I tell you that page number on page number 862. Okay, in page number 862, you will find the assessment. Chapter 29 assessment. So your task for today is to complete the assessment from the book as well, and few questions I made it for you which you have to write down, like what decisions were made at Versailles, how did the treaty Versailles affected Germany, and which group opposed the treaty and why. So study well and stay inside the home, take good care of your health, and I will see you again with the next lesson. Bye.